The Istanbul Cipher, Chapter 18. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and overripe flowers. I caught the end of Layla's scarf disappearing around the corner just as I stepped off the elevator, but she didn't see me. She moved fast, shoulders squared like she could outrun whatever news was waiting. I didn't follow. Not yet. Some things have to be faced alone. A nurse pointed me to the waiting area, where I sat and stared at a vending machine full of stale crackers and cheap chocolate. The hallway lights flickered, cheap LEDs buzzing above papered-over cracks. Istanbul's public hospitals weren't built for comfort. They were built to endure. From down the corridor, I caught murmured voices in Armenian. The curtain rustled. Layla's voice broke through next, sharp, ragged. No, stay awake, please. I stood, half a step toward the door, but froze when I heard Anahid's whisper, weak but clear. Her voice had the slow rhythm of memory spilling backward. The stars on the floor. Don't let them paint over the stars. Layla let out a sob so raw it silenced everything else. I sank back into the plastic chair, hands clenched. That phrase, it felt like poetry, but also a warning. Or maybe a map. What did she mean? Paint over the stars? I stared at the tile floor beneath my feet. Gray uniform, erased. When Layla finally emerged from the ward 20 minutes later, her face was stone. No tears, just absence. She didn't see me, didn't speak, just walked past, her steps echoing like something had hollowed her out from the inside. I wanted to stop her, say something helpful, but I knew better. This wasn't a moment for words. She didn't need comfort. She needed something to fight for. I reached the youth center just before noon, expecting at least a few of the kids to be there. Maybe Emre hunched over a terminal or Sibyl reviewing her notes. Instead, I found silence and a laminated sign zip-tied to the gate. All educational tech programs suspended pending review. The door was chained. A padlock hung from the handle like a punctuation mark on the sentence they didn't bother writing out loud. Shut it down and stay quiet. Emre and Sibyl arrived a minute later, both carrying backpacks. When they saw the sign, Emre cursed under his breath and kicked the bottom rail of the gate. Sibyl didn't say anything, just pulled out her phone and snapped a picture of the sign, like it might disappear before anyone believed it had ever existed. This place was always fragile, I said quietly, stepping forward to join them. But it wasn't just a room. It was a signal. Emre's jaw tightened. They're dismantling everything, bit by bit. I nodded toward the sign. This isn't a mistake. It's a message. The whiteboard inside was still visible through the dusty window. Site 003 was scrawled across it in red marker. Someone, maybe staff, maybe someone else, had drawn a thick black X through it. We stood in silence. The street behind us was alive with school kids walking home, and vendors calling out simit prices, the ordinary rhythm of a city unaware that something precious was being buried in broad daylight. Protocols? I asked Emre. He shook his head. Blocked. The project servers are now geo-locked. Any Turkish IP gets denied. Which means someone flagged us at the national level, I said. Not just flagged, targeted. Sibyl's voice was flat. Like we're malware. We stood like that for another minute, pretending we had options, pretending the city hadn't just erased us without firing a shot. Then Sibyl spoke again, more to herself than anyone else. They want people to forget. That's the point. Make us invisible too. I looked at the chain door one last time. Not invisible, not yet. I stopped by a corner kiosk later that day, hoping for coffee and something that didn't taste like defeat. Instead, my eyes caught the headline before my hand reached the cup. App desecrates Turkish heritage. Ministry opens investigation. A glossy print of the mosaic from our live stream, cropped tight and distorted, dominated the front page. Under it, in bold, foreign-backed youth group promotes cultural disunity. My stomach turned. I scanned the byline. No author, just ministry sources. I flipped the paper open. Photos of Emre, Layla, and Ayla, grainy stills from our stream, captioned with phrases like unlicensed digital activity, subversion of public spaces, and politicized storytelling. Kadir's name appeared halfway down the column. He was deeply concerned about the youth's exposure to misinformation. He described the project as a cautionary tale in the dangers of unfiltered educational autonomy. I clenched the page in my hand, crumpling it without thinking. The vendor gave me a look. I tossed a lira coin on the counter and walked. This wasn't criticism. This was war. An information kills shot, the kind that rewrites a truth before it can plant roots. And it wasn't just government press. Social feeds were echoing the same phrasing, influencers parroting buzzwords. A viral meme circulating, the clasped hands re-rendered as a cartoon, holding a match over a Turkish flag. I walked the back streets, away from the trams and tourists, past shuttered storefronts with peeling posters. I could feel it pressing in, that subtle reshaping of narrative. Not with batons or bans, with stories. When I reached the foot of the Galata steps, my phone buzzed. A message from Layla, only a link. I opened it. A video clip. That same meme, the hands and the match, now animated, with a voiceover. When culture becomes a code, who writes the rules? The implication was clear. We'd crossed a line, and now they were rewriting us. I stared at the screen, feeling the heat rise behind my eyes. You didn't just silence the truth, I thought. You turned kids into enemies. By nightfall, I still hadn't heard from Layla. I figured she needed space, we all did. But something gnawed at me, the kind of silence that felt less like distance and more like unraveling. Then I got the call. Siebel's voice was hushed but urgent. Zach, she's walking alone. Her grandmother was admitted this morning. ICU. I was already pulling on my blazer. I know, I saw her there this morning. But she left. Yeah, and no one's seen her since. I found her near the Golden Horn, under the skeletal beams of a half-demolished pedestrian bridge. She wasn't crying, just still. Her phone in one hand, her scarf twisted in the other. The kind of stillness that makes you afraid to speak. I sat beside her on the cold stone ledge and didn't say a word. After a long stretch, she broke the silence. Not to me, but to the night. She kept saying something in Armenian. I couldn't catch it all. Just one phrase. About stars on the floor, and someone painting over them. Her voice caught, but she kept going. I thought she was hallucinating. But then I remembered this recording I made last summer. Just her telling a story I hadn't listened to it in months. She tapped her phone. A faint, tremulous voice filled the air. Bare feet on cold tiles, painted stars. The grout held a line of letters. My brother said it was a prayer, hiding in plain sight. I leaned forward, pulse quickening. The grout. Layla, what did she say about the grout? She turned toward me, eyes wide now. Alive again. It wasn't just the mosaic, she whispered. The design itself wasn't the message. It was where it was placed. The grout. That's where the cipher is. I stood up. You're telling me the mosaic wasn't the destination. It was the delivery system. She nodded, already dialing Siebel. It hit me like a jolt. The church was the opening move. The real story was buried deeper. We didn't need the whole mosaic. We needed the fractures between it. Siebel's apartment was chaos when Layla burst in. She didn't knock, just shoved the door open like she'd been running the entire way from the bridge. I know what it is, she said, breathless. The cipher, it's not on the mosaic. It's inside it. Emre dropped the Ethernet cable he was untangling. What do you mean, inside? Layla held up her phone. Anahid remembered something. When she was a girl, the floor was painted with stars, and the grout between the tiles held a prayer, a line of letters. Her brother told her it was hidden for those who knew where to look. Siebel, already halfway to her laptop, blinked. Wait, that phrase on the edge of the image. I thought it was just damage, but it wasn't symmetrical. Layla nodded. It was a script, tiled deliberately across the seams, like a broken sentence waiting to be realigned. Isla came over, silent but focused, as Siebel pulled up the fragment scan from the decoy server. Give me a second, Emre said, sliding into place beside her. He layered the scan with a new alignment pattern based on Layla's retelling. If the prayer runs through the grout, then it's not about the tiles. It's about the points of intersection. A few tense seconds passed, and then the shape emerged, faint but unmistakable. A star grid overlaid with a concentric circle, not decorative, functional. Holy hell, Ayla muttered. It's a navigation schema, Ottoman surveying code, used to mark civic tunnels and protected waypoints. Late 1800s. Siebel sat back, stunned. The hands, the prayer, the story. It was all just a door. No, Layla whispered. It was a map. To something still deeper. I watched the light ripple across their faces. Shock, awe, hunger. The kind that comes when a truth refuses to stay buried. I exhaled slowly. Then the question's not where it ends. It's where it leads. Because someone had left us that map on purpose. And they hadn't just encoded memory. They'd weaponized it. We crowded around Emre's screen like pilgrims around a relic. On it, the mosaic fragment, once static and symbolic, now pulsed with a new kind of urgency. With the new alignment grid overlaid, the tiles no longer seemed decorative. They snapped into pattern, direction, intent. Zoom in, Layla whispered. Emre adjusted the interface, scrubbing layer by layer until the base structure of the site emerged. A subterranean chamber, tucked beneath the church's foundation, had gone undetected in every schematic we'd pored over for weeks. Buried beyond registered permits, erased from public records. At the center of it, a symbol embedded in the tiled grout, visible only from the new angle. A circle inside a star, flanked by mirrored letters from 3 alphabets. Is that... Sibel leaned closer. It matches the axis used in the Topkapi tunnel systems. It's not just symbolic, it's geographic. Isla stood and pointed to a cross-section. This junction. There's no way it was built without purpose. It connects to the old cistern network, maybe even tunnels that predate Byzantine engineering. And it's directly under what used to be the narthex. Layla's voice dropped. We thought the mosaic was the story. It's not. It's the lock. And we've just found the key, I said quietly. The room fell still. The kind of stillness that comes before a storm or a revolution. Maybe both. I turned to Layla. How did you know to listen to that recording? Her hands trembled slightly as she held up her phone. I didn't. It auto-played when I scrolled through old files. I hadn't listened to it in years. Not coincidence. Pattern. Outside, the city kept moving. Cars threading through narrow streets, minarets glowing against the night. But in here, a different map had come alive. A secret stitched into the stone of a stolen sanctuary. Left not for the past, but for us. I looked at each of them. Tired, bruised, brilliant. This isn't just about restoring what was lost, I said. It's about finishing what someone started. Layla nodded slowly. Then let's go where they couldn't.